So talking about the law of karma, it's important to understand karma as it relates to astrology. Too often karma is talked about as just all the bad stuff. It's not good or bad at all. It's like a law of nature. If you're going to understand astrology, you need to understand karma. You need to understand the planets are the different factors and facets of karma. So check this out. So I'm talking about karma and what is karma in an astrological sense. And this might seem like a sort of redundant topic, but it seems there's so much confusion and bad information, particularly about those who, or I should say by those who are astrologers or astrology teachers. Once they start talking about karma, then it just kind of gets so confusing. And certainly when we try to approach astrology as the science of trying to fix our karma or overcome our karma, these are just sort of basic ideas that people have, and I find them to be really misconstrued. So the first thing that I want to say, and again, it's a big subject, so I'm not going to act like, I'm the one who has the final word on what karma is. I wouldn't be that presumptuous. But there are a couple things that you should keep in mind that I could say very clearly. First of all, you may know that karma just means action. And the term it implies a lot. But one of the main things that you can glean is that it's not just negative stuff. It's the actions that you have taken and that you will take, and their result. It's the aggregate of the actions you've taken, and the intelligence and awareness and pattern and expectation and habit that has formed in your mind based on those actions that you've already taken and how they have led to this moment now. And then the actions you're going to take from here into the future based on your level of awareness. That's what karma is. It's more effective to look at karma as the past influencing the present and forcing the present to seem a certain way to you. So the karma, your quote, the aggregate of your karma, means that you've done things in a certain way and and it's created a habit of seeing things in a certain way. Okay? Now, on this knife edge, this razor's edge between the past actions you've taken and how they've conditioned you to see things, and the actions you're about to take in the present, the next action you're about to take, which is going to keep creating that future, either based on the condition of the past or a new future, in between those two things is what's called awareness. So you can look at karma as operating in time. Time is past and future. The present moment is not time. Because time needs, I should say, the mind needs time. And timelessness is not of the mind, it's of the spirit. So when you introduce awareness and consciousness into your life, basically what you're doing is you're stepping into the moment rather than being triggered by your responses. You come into presence and you act in accordance with what's called dharma and truth, and what you know to be true and real, which is again a matter of consciousness, not of karma or patterning. And when you can do that, your actions, meaning the actions that you're now going to take, are going to be coming from a place of awareness and consciousness. Now, these are very tricky concepts. They're very tricky words, because everybody thinks when they hear consciousness and they hear awareness and they think presence, everybody thinks they do that. Everyone thinks, oh yeah, okay, when I'm present, when I'm conscious, when I'm aware. But what I'm talking about when I say consciousness and awareness and presence is actually a point of stillness in the mind that most people, I'm sorry to say, do not come to naturally, if at all. Many people, if not most people, have never touched that point of stillness and peace and pure consciousness and pure awareness in their own being. When I say consciousness and awareness, I'm not just saying, okay, well, I'm not sleeping, I'm walking around, so I'm present now because I'm thinking about where I am or some aberration. That's not what I mean when I say consciousness or awareness or presence. Consciousness, awareness, and presence are also what's called, or they're also imbued with stillness, peace, love. There is no triggering emotion going on when there's awareness, stillness, and peace. There is no triggered response. And many of us, or most of us, don't get to that point. Particularly in those moments when the karma, which again we use the word karma to mean the bad stuff, and it's not, we're just as triggered and just as amped up and emotional when it comes to good stuff. But we just kind of, like, let's say we're sexual or we're having a good time. That's also karma. So you understand, karma is the whole range. But we tend to just use the word karma when it's something heavy and we feel the negative emotion and we're trying to fix it and our ego is now trying to struggle against the bad thing. We tend to put that as karma. And when we're not trying to struggle against something negative and we're just kind of like having a good time with our friends and we're kind of just flowing with the universe, we don't think of that as karma. That's also karma. Again, karma, forget the good and the bad part. But we don't bring consciousness or awareness to either one usually. We're usually just emotional, not present, but emotional, being triggered and reacting to whatever the emotion is. Again, the good one, the bad one, the irritation, which makes us want to avoid the thing or fight back against it, or the positive emotion, which makes us want to gravitate toward it and get more of it. Attractions and aversions, attracted to the thing we want, avoiding the thing we don't want. And you might say, well, what's wrong with that? Well, there's nothing wrong with it as a judgment. But it's simply a mode of being. In fact, it's very animalistic. This is what animals do. And we're basically a refined animal until we start to unfold consciousness, and then we stop just being a triggered animal. It's what's called karma, acting based on karma, which is attractions and aversions. I like this, I don't like that. Or acting in accordance with dharma, which is truth. And it's the truth you already know. You already know what's right and what's wrong. And when I say right and wrong, again, I don't mean as an empirical judgment. I mean, you already know what's going to bring beauty, joy, happiness, awareness, consciousness. But it's hard to do it. You already know when you're about to get into an argument or a fight or turn into this kind of thing that it's not the thing to do. Or when you're avoiding something because you think it's going to hurt you, and avoiding it, you know you should probably push through it, but you avoid it anyway, and you fall back on your avoidance strategy, which might be to, turn on YouTube and watch Sam's videos. That's a good strategy. No, but we want to understand that all of that is karma. The aggregate of all of this is karma, and presence and awareness introduced in the flow of that karmic triggering is how we shift. And this is cultivated through spiritual practices, yoga and meditation, breathing, those scientific strategies. That's yoga, but there are others. To unfold consciousness. Now, what does astrology have to do with this? Because that's what's important in this case. Well, astrology shows the specifics of the karma itself. It starts with the idea and the understanding that there are no, literally, there are no bad planets, there are no problems or mistakes in the universe. It's not as if Saturn is punishing you, or the moon is punishing you, or Venus is rewarding you, or Jupiter rewarding you. This whole idea of God doling out a series of like carrots and sticks to kind of beat you into submission, or reward you. Again, it's just a naive, childish view. All of the planetary energies are forces of intelligence and wisdom, and they're not up there moving around doing something to you. You, this limited being here walking around, you are a universal being, and your universal nature is the same as the planetary nature. Your divine nature emanates from that. The highest qualities of you are the highest qualities of them. There is no difference. There is no distinction. And in fact, our suffering and your suffering as a limited being is along this arc of limitation. Because you think you only have this much power when you have infinite power is the karmic suffering you experience relative to the sun. Because the sun is always trying to connect you with the true source of power in you, not the limited power that struggles against others, for example. So when you feel the quote punishment of the sun and the negative karma of the sun, or the sun is punishing you, or if there's that kind of feeling, that's not it at all. The punishment is your own ignorance. And again, your own ignorance comes from your habit, your habitual pattern with that. Even saying your own ignorance just means the ignorance of the ego. And you think you're this separate thing, and so you've continually taken action, karma, based on this limited understanding of the sun. Oh, I have this much power, so I need to fight to hold on to this much power and try to incrementally increase that power, and you're trying to hold my power back and hold me back. So everyone's karmic pattern with the sun is basically the same. Power struggles. The moon, it's the same. Emotional connection and disconnect. We identify with the emotions rather than the pure love in our heart. Everyone's karma with Mars is basically the same thing. Asserting our individuality. Wanting to win and, again, defend our separate individuality and fight to survive. Arguing and things like that. You want to know something beautiful? And here's something to really understand. That your karma is basically the same, the universal karma that every being has. Here's what happens is we make everything so personal. This is literally the problem. I tell this to my students all the time, and I say it in these videos a lot too. But most of the karma we have is shared karma. It's not even your karma. And again, that is in many ways the problem, is you keep saying it's you. Right? Well, I have this, and astrology can make it worse. Well, my sun is here, and my Saturn is here, and my Venus, so I'm this, and what about me, and me, and me? And I get it's fascinating to think that your karma is the most unique ever. You know what? None of it is unique to me at this point. It's all just a different version of the same story. Everyone has the same karma with the sun. Some power struggle. When I look at someone's sun in their natal chart, I just look at what's the specifics of the power struggle. I explain it to them. Makes them feel, oh yes, okay, yes, you understand. That's so much the way it is. I'm like, yeah, big deal. Right. Everybody's got some story about their power struggle. This is yours. So here's what to do. And what to do about it is always the same. Because it's just, what to do is you have to connect with the divine nature of the sun, which is not your separate self and the power struggle to be a king of a mountain of crap here on Earth, which is going to get taken away. I'm the king of this mountain of crap. I'm the king of this mountain of skulls that will... No, it's to be the king of your mortality. Or of the moon. I want to feel this thing that's going to get taken away and doesn't amount to anything anyway. We all have the same karmas. Same karma with Mercury. Try to figure things out, get overstimulated, think we got it all figured out, have some explanation, some story going on in our head that's completely wrong. Same karma. And when we think it's so different, it's not. Different variations on a theme. So the planets themselves, the pure nature of the planets, is what people should really focus on, even in their astrology studies. Before trying to figure out the chart and, oh, I'm this and I'm that. That pure nature of every planet is the pure nature of who you are, and your karma descends from that purity, and then it gets filtered into this realm. And again, the reason you've even incarnated is because you think you're separate from all of that. You're convinced. Much as I might try to convince you otherwise, you're not buying it. You're hanging on to it. I'm separate. I'm me. Now give me the method that can help me defeat that bad karma. And then you hear astrologers say the same thing. Well, you're not just the chart. You can rise above the chart. You're stronger than any planet. You're not just that... yada. Okay, it's not wrong, but it's just limited, and it takes astrology out of the question, because what happens, this is what the planetary dashas are, right? The dasha cycles. The transits. So we have this aggregate of karma, which is the natal chart. It's the birth chart. That's the ratio of all the different divine forces at play in you, and your relationship, your limited understanding of each one, even the ones that are the highest, like the ones that are exalted and the more powerful ones. You have, like with me, I have a prominent Mercury, as you might imagine. That's why I can, be a bit of a blabbermouth and talk, because I have a strong Mercury, can think. But it's not even close to perfect. It still runs me in a whole bunch of different directions, but because it's developed, what happens is the planets that are more developed, we can see the mistake a lot more easier. We're much less likely to repeat the mistakes. The karma is much more aware and it's higher, but it's still karma of this earth. The ones that are darker, like the planets that have more problems and struggles, there are times when we do it perfectly, but it's harder. It's just that they're more veiled in darkness, and we're more attached, and they're functioning more through that animalistic, frightened, stimulated, uncontrollable way. And we tend to learn lessons with planets in lower dignity, which it's usually the dignities that you can see. That's the first way to tell whether the karma with that planet, like in that dasha or whatnot, is going to be unfolding with awareness and consciousness and higher truth, or tangled up in a lot of pain and darkness. The ones in the lower dignities are the ones where we usually have a hard time learning, except through painful mistakes. But we still learn, and regardless of how much difficulty is there, when we introduce consciousness into the equation, we evolve that thing much more easily. And what was once a very painful thing, it still can be painful, and it still often is painful, but we're introducing awareness into the equation, and before we, for example, magnify the pain by projecting it onto others, screwing up something in our life as a result, we learn to just be calm and still and see it, and it can be a great source of wisdom. This is why many times the difficult planets lead us to that awareness eventually, but it's often through painful mistakes. And the ones that are higher, we don't make as many mistakes with them. Like I say, like with myself and my Mercury, I also have a powerful Jupiter. I don't make as many mistakes with them. I make mistakes with others. Moon, Venus aren't as powerful. So the point is this. Karma itself is neutral. It's the good stuff and the bad stuff, if you want to say. So they kind of cancel each other out. And there's no need to look outside of astrology when you're getting the bad karma of astrology. You don't then discard it and say, well, it's just going to be hard for a while, so pray to your guru and blah, blah, blah. No, that astrology itself gives you, the planets themselves are the forces of intelligence, and they're the ones that you draw upon when you're experiencing the difficulty. Because if you're in that, let's say that Venus dasha, and Venus is hammered, and it's not good in your chart, it's debilitated, or not even want to say debilitated, but things that are affecting it make it hard for you to enjoy Venus nature. You can't avoid it. You're getting the karmas of that. And you will feel that the truth of that karma at that time. So the redemption also comes from that planet. You just need to be careful not to. Usually what happens is with the benefic planets, when they're painful, we tend to avoid those things because we're afraid of the unfulfilled desire. We're afraid to even try to reach out for love or connection, or let's say friends and interactions if it's Mercury, or we're afraid to even try to find a guru or a teacher if it's Jupiter. We just kind of, it's just painful for us because those are things that we want to feel good with. And when they're difficult, we are afraid to even try. What happens with the negative planets, like with Mars and Saturn, it's harder to sit with them often because Mars is frustration, and we tend to dump that on another person when it's weak. Saturn, we tend to dump that on another person when it's weak. So this is one of the mistakes that we make with the planets. We're supposed to do just the opposite. I'll talk about that in a future video. But you want to know that karma is really just the aggregate of the actions that we've taken. And there's no judgment in it, and it's never off. It's never wrong. Last thing I'll say is this. You want to look at karma like a natural law. Like, for instance, gravity. Gravity is a natural law, right? It's not good when it keeps you stuck on the earth, and then bad when it pulls you off the balcony and kills your child or pulls an airplane out of the sky. It's simply a natural law. It's a law that governs objects and keeps things the way they are, and failure to understand or grasp the law of gravity could be very dangerous. If you say, oh, I can fly, well, you're not respecting the law of gravity, and it's going to show you very quickly through a painful result what's going on. Karma is the same way. And all of the planets are different energies interacting with karma. So again, we're trying to learn. Karma is the law that teaches us the truth about our power, which is the sun, and our connection, which is the moon, our courage, which is Mars, our discrimination and intelligence, which is Mercury, our sense of hope and purpose, which is Jupiter, how to live with each other on the world, or in the world, which is Venus, and how to let go of things, which is Saturn. Karma is the law that delivers the truth to you, showing you what you actually know about that. So if you're suffering with that, it's because karma is saying, here's what the thing is. It's just like, another one would be fire. Fire is another natural law. It's not a judgment. It's not good when it warms your food and, kisses your face on a sunny day, and then bad when it burns you or blows up in an explosion. It's not good or bad. But when you put your hand in fire, you've learned a couple times, oops, I better not try to touch it. So we don't do it anymore. We learn the lesson with things like gravity and fire. But we don't learn the lesson with the planets. Because this is one of the other things with karma. I'm going to make another video that shows why it's so hard to understand karma. So stay tuned for the next video on this. A reason why karma is hard to learn, or why it's hard to learn these lessons of the planets. But I just wanted to make this video because I've seen so much of this lately, and I wanted to talk about it because it's quite a tricky subject. By the way, I talk about it quite a lot in my book. I probably have 30 pages devoted to karma and astrology, and literally a thing called the karmic frame. Where is it? It's a really good way to look at it. Here it is, the karmic frame. You can see that. The karmic frame. Where literally how karma is arriving in the past and the future. Talk a lot about, you know, what karma is, how to understand it astrologically as well. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this.